Are you currently attending college? If so, do you expect your degree to help you reach your career goals and hopefully make more money? Do you ever fantasize of landing that dream job with a high salary that would greatly improve your lifestyle? If so, you would certainly not be alone. Many dream of improving socioeconomic conditions, which, in turn, can also improve social status. In other lessons, we've discussed social stratification, a system by which society ranks categories of people in a hierarchy. We've also discussed the American class system and the differences between upper, middle, and lower class. We are fortunate enough to live in a society with an open system of social stratification. That is, with the right opportunity, we have the ability to move up in society and become a member of a different social class. We aren't necessarily stuck with the social status with which we were born. This is known as social mobility, a change in position within the social hierarchy. Earning a college degree or professional certification, landing a higher paying job, or marrying someone who is wealthy can help someone move up the social ladder. We also have the American dream. We love stories of people who rise from rags to riches and continue promoting the idea that anyone can succeed with the right opportunity. Of course, there's also downward social mobility. Losing a job, dropping out of school, or being publicly disgraced may contribute to being knocked down a rung. Upward and downward social mobility are both types of vertical mobility, a change in position between social levels. A factory worker who becomes a wealthy entrepreneur experiences significant vertical mobility, moving upward through the ranks of the social hierarchy. Although he started as part of the working class, he ended up as part of the upper class. In reality, it is rare for someone to jump that far on the social ladder. Horizontal mobility, a change in position at the same social level, is actually much more common than vertical mobility. It is almost always the result of changing occupations within the same social class. A nurse who leaves one hospital to take a position as a nurse at another hospital, and a manager who accepts a similar position at another company are both experiencing horizontal mobility. Although they have changed jobs, they remain at their same level within the social hierarchy. Sociologists study not only the actual change in social position, but also the amount of time the change takes to occur. There are both shorter and longer-term changes in social status.
Millie is a first-generation college student from Tennessee. Both Millie's parents were immigrants who worked hard labor jobs for most of their lives. Millie grew up in a poor urban community, and her family often struggled to pay their bills. Once Millie enrolled in college, her situation changed. Her parents paid for most of her education, and Millie was able to work part-time as a writer while she was in school. Millie graduated college with no student loan debt, and her first novel was published shortly after that. Millie continued to write short stories and children's novels even after she got married and had children of her own. Both Millie's children were also writers. Millie's son eventually became a professor at a prestigious university, while her daughter became a well-known author and international bestseller. This is an example of intergenerational mobility. So what do we mean by intergenerational mobility? Intergenerational mobility refers to any change in the social position of family members that takes place from one generation to the next. Millie's parents started as immigrants. Then the next generation, Millie, progressed into first-generation college student and writer, and the following generation, Millie's children, progressed further into world-famous authors. All these changes within the generations of Millie's family line show intergenerational mobility. Intergenerational mobility is often confused with intragenerational mobility. Suppose we hadn't discussed Millie's parents or children at all, and just focused on Millie's changes in social position, from a poor child to a college student, and then to an author. Trenton is a young man born into a middle-class family in a nice suburban community. When Trenton is 5, his father loses his job and has to sell the family home. Trenton and his family move in with his grandparents, and Trenton starts playing the guitar. Trenton continues to practice and joins a rock band in his teen years. Shortly after his 21st birthday, Trenton's band gets a record deal, and Trenton becomes an international rock star. Trenton plays and travels with his band until he is 50. Trenton then retires to teach guitar courses at a performing arts university. This is an example of intragenerational mobility. So what do we mean by intragenerational mobility? Intergenerational mobility refers to social mobility that takes place during one's lifespan. Social mobility refers to any movement in a social hierarchy system. In the previous example, we saw Trent go from being a child born into a middle-class family, to a poor child living with his grandparents, to a teenager in a rock band, and then to an international rock star. The final stage of Trent's social mobility saw him retire and begin a career as a professor. Suppose that Trenton's grandparents were immigrants from a foreign country who spent most of their lifetimes working factory jobs so that Trenton's parents could go to school. As adults, Trenton's parents were able to get college degrees and both became teachers. Trenton's mother later retired to be a stay-at-home mom. Trenton was able to develop his skills as a guitar player and become an international star and multi-millionaire.
If giving up your whole life to find success in Hollywood were easy, everyone would do it. For decades, actors, musicians, and personalities have struggled to make it big, and many suffer through poverty-stricken misery just to make their dreams a reality. Some even did it in spite of not having a proper bed to sleep in. Here are 10 famous celebs who were once homeless. Daniel Craig. Hard to believe that the dashing British actor who rejuvenated one of the all-time greatest film franchises was once so poor that he slept on park benches. As a struggling actor in London, Daniel Craig seemingly spent as much time sleeping in Hyde Park as he did reading in audition rooms. Nowadays, after 4 Bond films, Craig's penniless days are far behind him. Halle Berry. Long before she became the first African-American woman to win the Oscar for Best Actress, Halle Berry was 21 years old and living in a homeless shelter in New York City. In spite of her mother's staunch objection, the future X-Man and Bond girl persevered and eventually landed her breakout role in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever. Kelly Clarkson. When the future internationally renowned pop star Kelly Clarkson's LA apartment caught fire, she had no choice but to live in her car. What didn't kill her made her stronger, and Clarkson decided to move back home to her native Texas, where she auditioned for American Idol and became the legendary show's first champion. Jim Carrey. He may be snickering all the way to the bank now, but when Canadian comedian Jim Carrey was a boy, his life was no laughing matter. At the tender age of 12, Carrey's father lost his job, forcing his family to live out of a VW bus. It took years of perseverance, but by the mid-90s, Carrey was the biggest comedian in the world. Jennifer Lopez. She may still be Jenny from the block, but Jennifer Lopez probably doesn't want to go back to her pre-stardom days of extreme poverty in the Bronx. When the determined pop star and actress was 18, she decided to leave her broken family home to pursue her dance career and ended up homeless. She spent almost a year sleeping on a cot in a dance studio before catching her break on In Living Color. Tyler Perry. When comedian Tyler Perry was living out of a crackhead-infested pay-by-week hotel in Atlanta, he probably couldn't have pictured himself being the multi-millionaire movie mogul that he is today. After spending all his money on his play I Know I've Been Changed, Perry was virtually homeless for 6 years. The struggle paid off when that same play finally made him a star. Dr. Phil. These days, Dr. Phil spends a lot of time trying to give others hope, but when he was 15, the now popular TV psychologist didn't have much of his own. When he and his dad were separated from the rest of the family for financial reasons, they lived out of their car. Eventually, they found a room at the YMCA that cost only $5 a week but had no electricity. His net worth is now over $300 million. Jewel. Not many artists trek all the way from Alaska to make it in Hollywood, but singer-songwriter Jewel sure did. However, her voyage to platinum-selling success did not come without its fair share of hardship along the way. When she was fired from her job for refusing to sleep with her boss, Jewel lived out of her car, while performing in coffee shops and black box venues before hitting it big in 1994. William Shatner. Most people forget that Star Trek was not a success when it originally aired in the late 60s, lasting only 3 seasons. One man who can never forget that sobering fact is Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner, who after the show's cancellation was slept in the back of his pickup truck while doing summer stock theater. Oprah Winfrey. Perhaps the greatest rags to riches story ever, Oprah grew up in poverty with her grandmother in Mississippi. So poor, in fact, they used potato sacks as clothing. After her grandmother passed away, 6-year-old Winfrey ended up at a boarding house in Milwaukee, where she was raped and abused before breaking free and moving to Nashville to start her career. She is now worth over $3 billion.